Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your midday market report for Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Our weekly trip across the border with the one and only Mr. Andrew McInnis, who today we will discuss. I guess there's a big hockey game starting tonight, the Stanley Cup. Two-time defending champs Tampa Bay Lightning traveled to the Colorado Avalanche, an Avs team that got egg on their face last year in the playoffs, up 2-0 to Vegas, and then 4 games in a row Vegas wins, and the rest is history there. A Lightning team that, I must be honest, I did not have reaching the Stanley Cup. I didn't have them reaching the Eastern Conference Finals. I didn't have them getting out of the first round. Yeah, I said it. We do have Avs plus 330, though, to win the Cup, so we will discuss that. And I cannot forget our CFL. Last week we made our debut, and Andrew spot on early on the card. We got 4 games to bring up as well. And maybe I'll start them with a slow curve because I love the news yesterday. So let's start with that. Without further ado, let's bring him in, the one, the only Mr. Andrew McInnis.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
It feels like Christmas Day. I'm ready for the present of the Stanley Cup Finals. You know, it's been a long playoffs, some great series, some sweeps we've seen, but this is one of the best matchups in the playoffs that I can remember in the last several years. So I can't wait for tonight, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. My backdrop is from Brookline. I walked the course yesterday. You should have seen me trying to get out of bed this morning. I look like Fred G. Sanford. So whoever wins this weekend will definitely earn it. My slow curve to you. You know, we talk about the Bruins. We talk about every year their failures, and the blame is obviously Tuukka Rask. Well, this year they went a different route. Cam and Sweeney says it's not us, it's the coach, and they fire Bruce Cassidy, who I'm telling you, took it like, OMG, are you kidding me? 6 years we've been in the playoffs, and this is how you're going to treat me? Well, bittersweet, the news yesterday. Cassidy going to Vegas, Sin City, the Strip. What's your take on that?
I got to do a little shameless plug here, Jeff, because I did a podcast with Jimmy Murphy from BostonHockeyNow.com, good friend of mine. We talked about it, and he pretty much didn't take it easy. He's a Bruins reporter that has no problem ripping the team management or anything like that. And look, I went on and did a video yesterday saying this. I think it is a blessing in disguise for Bruce Cassidy. I mean, you wake up one day, you're blindsided. You wake up the next, you're a head coach of one of the newest exciting teams in the NHL. No, I don't mean the Seattle Kraken. I'm talking about the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, what a place to coach. So many great players with Stone, Pacioretty. Don't forget a guy like Jack Eichel, who it's kind of funny because people thought that Bruce Cassidy might be his coach for the Bruins. And now Bruce Cassidy gets to coach him for a different team. What a blessing in disguise there. I think that one thing we discussed yesterday, teams with historic franchises, like I'll even talk about a team like Detroit. It took them a while to want to go into the rebuild. Montreal, Stanley Cup 1 year, Stanley Cup run, I should say, to last place and now number 1 overall pick. The Boston Bruins, the Jacobs family, Sweeney, all these guys running this team are scared to rebuild. That's how I feel. I think that they don't want to, like even the Rask thing, I was a Rask fan, but bringing him back and then sending Swayman down to the minors, who's your up and coming superstar goalie, and talking about David Krejci and Bergeron kind of teasing them with retirement. Now you've got McAvoy injured, Grzelcyk injured, or not, coming off surgeries. Jimmy said to me, he said, by American Thanksgiving of next year, we're going to realize this team is not making the playoffs. That's what he said. That's his timeline for being able to tell. So it's a blessing in disguise for me. I like Bruce Cassidy. I have heard he's tough. I have heard that he might not be a John Tortorella type guy in the media, but I have heard that he is tough on his players. And if you make a mistake, he'll let you know. And apparently some players like McAvoy and even a few of the older guys let him know how they feel about that. And, as a younger person, I don't know why I was affiliated with this conversation, but Jimmy said to me, he goes, "Hey, man, no offense to the younger generation, but you guys don't take criticism very well." And I said, "Hey, man, don't bring me into this, don't bring me into that conversation." But he said, "Look, I like Cassidy. I like what he brings. And, not every team has to have that players coach." And we saw how that worked out with Chicago for a while, having the youngest coach in the league. It doesn't always work out that way when you're a nice guy in the locker room. So blessing in disguise, in my opinion. And it's kind of funny how quickly Vegas just swooped in and picked him up.
I love it. I can't wait. I know we usually get up there for a couple weeks in March. If we do get up there, definitely we'll be heading to a Knights game. You had the privilege to go to a Knights game not too long ago. And if you're out there in March or whenever we get out there, if you're there, we'll have to make sure, we're not just at the game. I'll make sure we get tickets behind the Knights so we can say hi to Bruce and welcome him and say, you got a better chance winning a cup here in Vegas than you do in Boston. That's for sure.
We'll let him know. We'll make a sign. Happier. We'll put it behind his head. Happier to be here. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you're from Mass. You're in the area. I'm sure all the news and media you see there. What do you see when you look at a team like that, or you're in the area? Is Jimmy right? By next Thanksgiving, are we going to see them, admit defeat?
He's spot on. And the problem is now we have no Rask to blame. We have no Cassidy to blame. So we're going to the owners. The owners only care about fannies in the seats. They only care about making the playoffs and then the revenue off of the beer and all the.
Well, he mentioned that, Jeff. He said all the Jacobs family cares about is getting to one round every year to make more beer sales and pizza and popcorn. They couldn't care less about round 2, 3, or 4.
And that was it. Ask any Bruins fan, what's your outlook this year? We'll win the first round and we'll bow out in the second round. It doesn't matter who they play. And that's the thought process. They didn't have Rask to blame. And somehow, some way that the upper management was able to save their jobs. And you can look back at the past drafts. I think it was in 16 or 17 when they had all the first round picks and they just botched it. And from there, the rest is history. You got an aging team. You got some guys, we don't know if they're going to come back. I DM'd you not too long ago and says, look out, you could be getting a nice aging veteran that wants to end in Montreal. And now the fact is that you got to build with McAvoy. You got to build with Swayman and up front, and they don't have it. You've talked about it at length. We're a one-line team. And so the future is bleak, especially going into next year. It'll be interesting to see how they act. Are they proactive on this and finally realizing, hey, it wasn't Rask, it wasn't the Jacobs, it's actually the upper management with Sweeney and Cam, and they'll be the next two to go.
Agreed. And I'll say this. I think that team total overs for the opposition might be the way to go. Even though, we talked about yesterday. Jimmy said to me, the goaltending position is the only position we really can feel good about with Swayman. That's the future in goaltending for them. But how many defensive forwards are left? How many defensemen are healthy right now? How many stay-at-home guys can you count on to be your number one pairing guys? I mean, with Grzelcyk out and McAvoy out, I don't know what's going to... I mean, you have no McAvoy. It's very easy to tell on the ice. And I think it'll make a huge difference. I really wonder what's going to happen with that second line next year. The first line, we know what's going on. We know what they're capable of. The second line, to me, will be the biggest question. I'm not someone that often plays win totals, but I think next year I might get into it because I've seen too many people cash tickets on under for Vegas this year, under for the Kraken, and next year I think the Bruins under a certain number might be worth a look.
100% agree. I can't wait for that show when we break down the under-overs and who's going to make the playoffs, who's not going to make the playoffs. And we will definitely have some fun there. So speaking of fun, we talked before the show started. Stanley Cup starts tonight. Opening numbers, and I am a big opening number, and I trust and respect it. Vegas knows where they need the money and how to get that money, and they've created this. Avs open up -200. I saw the Lightning as high as +175, even 180. Now we're looking at that 180 to +160. We talked about what the exact price and what the favorite is. And if I asked anyone watching this right now, you have 8 chances to pick it. Avs in a sweep, Avs in 5, 6, or 7, or Lightning in a sweep, 5, 6, or 7. And the favorite at +375, according to our friends at the Superbook, is Avs in 5 +375. Give us your thought process leading up to this, where both teams are, and your initial thoughts before the first puck drops.
Well, I think that when you break down the Stanley Cup final, everybody wants to talk about how did these teams get here? What was the path to victory, the path to the Stanley Cup final to represent your conference? And I'm kind of hearing two things. Number one, well, who did Colorado play? They played a bunch of, nobodies. They played a bunch of guys that aren't going to, contend against them. They played an Oilers team they swept, a Nashville team they swept, and then an injured goaltender in Binnington in round 2. Everybody seems like they're not giving any credit in the world to what Colorado has done and made it sound like a cakewalk. When I look at Tampa Bay, it's been quite the opposite. Lose 5-0 game 1. Win game 7 against the Maple Leafs in tight fashion. Then you sweep Florida, a series that was supposed to go 6 or 7 games. Then against New York, you find yourself down 2 games after losing both at Madison Square Garden. Find a way to win the next 4. Obviously, experience versus inexperience. I think high-scoring team against low-scoring defensive team. Those are the kind of things I'm looking at right now. You look at a goaltender like Vasilevsky, and then the whole Francouz and Kemper debate as far as healthiness and kind of who's going to be the starter for them. Here's my question to everybody out there that is saying, who have they played? I'm talking about Colorado here. Who else could they play? What else do you want from them? They swept 2 out of 3 of their series so far. Right? Like, I don't understand what more they could do to appease people when they've only played the team that they were supposed to play and the team that was in front of them. How can people possibly say that Colorado, has had an underwhelming playoffs based on who they've played when they've lost twice in the playoffs? They've lost 2 games. It's unbelievable to me, the disrespect they're getting based off their scheduling when they've lost 2 games so far. When you say that out loud, it's hard to really imagine people not giving this team any credit. And when I look at Tampa Bay, they've been through so much adversity, and all I'm hearing is pats on the back for them. right? It's kind of like a tale of two stories. One team dominates and nobody wants to give them credit because of who they've played. One team has gone through plenty of adversity, but oh my God, what a great job by them to fight back after being down 2. What a great effort in game 7 against the Leafs. How about the fact that they went to a game 7? How about the fact they dropped 2 games on the road to start the series against the Rangers? Those are the opinions that I look at and the things that I think about when I talk about this series. So, to me, the bottom line in this series is what I said about in the Maple Leafs versus Lightning series. This is going to be about the Andre Palats of the world. This is not going to be the series of the Kucherovs versus McKinnon. I think it's very important for Rantanen and McKinnon to get going early in the series for Colorado, just to get that confidence. But I think this series will be won off a guy like Arturi Lehkonen for the Colorado Avalanche, not a guy like Nichushkin or Rantanen putting pucks in the net. That to me is the difference. So if you ask yourself, if you're watching this video, you ask yourself, pull up the depth chart, pull up all 4 lines for both these teams, eliminate the top 2 lines, the top line for Tampa, top line for Colorado, and then ask yourself, which lineup do I have more confidence in? To me, that's the answer that gives you the Stanley Cup winner, not the teams all over together. I also think that Tampa Bay games correlate to the under, and I think the Colorado victories correlate to the over.
And it's funny because in the last series against Edmonton, 6.5s, even a 7. The first game was bedlam, lower scoring in the second game. And then we expected when we got back to Edmonton, more of that up and down, up and down. Here it's 6 juiced under. So I think it's actually correlating to what you're saying. First 1 to 3 tonight probably wins the game.
Agreed. And I think it's a huge question mark here for the defense of Colorado. Let me ask you this. I mean, Colorado is such a great offensive team, so much speed, and I think a lot of it is due to their defensemen. Not just Makar, Taves, even Johnson when he was in the lineup, coming in, stepping up, Bowen Byram. Can Tampa Bay slow down the defensive rush of Colorado? I think they can. I still like goals here in the opening game, but I'm not sure we're going to see Makar dancing around like Bob Orr tonight, like he was against the Oilers. I don't think it'll be as easy for him to skate around the offensive end.
I agree. And I think the mindset is, again, the streak was broken. They had won 17 in a row after a loss. I was, as you were talking a few minutes ago, I'm trying to play this out in my head. And I'm like, well, if Colorado holds serve and wins the first 2 at home, I think the Lightning fan will just say, hey, we just did this against the Rangers. We can come back home, hold serve at home, and we'll go back to Colorado 2-2, and it's the best out of 3. I will tell you guys, not so fast there. I can play this out where 2 hard-fought games, Avs win both of them, and they come back. Yeah, Lightning hold serve game 3, but I could see a hard-fought 2-1, 3-2 game in game 4, and then that's where I could see all hell breaking loose and the Avs hoisting the cup in 5.
I think that, like you said, it settles down after a game or 2. That would be crazy to see a 5-game series. That would be, I think, a shocker to people. But like you said, that's what the numbers are pointing towards here. To me, it's the experience as far as the players on Tampa Bay. It's obviously another big headline, as far as what the media have been talking about here. I think that Colorado's, hump was that second round. After that, this is an unbelievable team with speed all around. They're here, and they're here to make some noise. Jeff, as far as the totals go in this series, I believe we're going to see a high-scoring start to the series, whether it's game 1 and 2 or just game 1. And then we'll see adjustments start to happen defensively on the bench, in the games, between intermissions, between games. So I like that. Starts off with a bang, slows down a bit, and then ends off with a bang again, as far as the totals are concerned. It's so cool because when you see a Stanley Cup final matchup, these teams don't see each other a lot. like you do with a conference final, East quarters, East semis. You don't see that. But with these two teams, all they have are film, and all they know is that each teams are, one hell of a hockey club, but they've never played or lined up against each other as much as they have with their other opponents. So I think, period one, I think we see some goals. I like the over 1.5 first period. I think full game at 6 cashes, and then we might see some adjustments going into the next game.
If I asked you right before we cut to CFL right now, I guess I'll throw you the soft lob here. If you had to give a prediction, and I'm not putting a gun to your head and say we're marking this down, or who's the MVP of the Stanley Cup, anything that you want to throw out to everyone watching and listening right now.
Well, I heard yesterday that it actually has not happened very often where these Stanley Cup Finals series have gone to 7. I think it's like twice in the last 10 years or something like that, which blew my mind. I think Colorado wins in 6, and I think Nathan McKinnon wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. Cale Makar is now the favorite to win that because of what he's done all throughout the playoffs. But what I mentioned a few moments ago about him not being able to dance around and skate circles around the ozone like he had against Edmonton and Nashville, a little bit of St. Louis as well. I think depth is so important, but in order for them to take that step and win it, and don't forget about that quote from McKinnon last year after they lost, talked about how he's been in the league for 9 years. He's ready to win at this, plus, I think it's like 220 price, depending on where you look around. That's a pretty good bet to me on McKinnon to win the Conn Smythe and bring it home to the far East Coast.
CFL, good week last week, opening week. Again, it's hard in opening week. You only can do so much research. You want to feel like you're inside the huddle, but as you talked about, injuries, just bad game, bad timing. We talked about on the show last week. I think it was the first week for sure, if not the first two, it was dogs and unders. And you posted something on the timeline and you talked about it behind closed doors before we started. Give us a quick recap of what transpired in week 1 in the CFL and what you saw, not just from the X's and O's, but from a betting standpoint as well.
I mean, what was great to me was the first opening game. And just in general, I'm always trying to get people interested in the sport. We saw a 30-27 game out the gate, Calgary and Montreal. That one was just kind of nice to see to start off the year with a bang, trading points, a come from behind victory there from Calgary at home. So a high scoring contest there. And there's a lot of new rules regarding like fair catches, the amount of space you give a guy off a kick and all that good stuff. And I think they're trying to promote more offense this year with these new rules. And we definitely saw that in the opening game. But Montreal, Williams Standback goes down. You hate to see it. Seems like a great guy in the media. He's a running back for Montreal, Jeff, and huge loss. The RB1 for the Alouettes. It's going to hurt them big time. He's a guy that, makes big gains every time he touches the ball. And I feel like that as much as they have some decent guys on the depth chart, they're not like Standbacks. So that's going to be a big blow for them. So that was one big impression I made, out the gate there. Ottawa Winnipeg was game 2, low scoring game, field goal, winning drive there for Winnipeg. But it wasn't their best game passing wise. Zach Collaros didn't look as strong. Their offensive line didn't look as good. And, their coverage in the secondary wasn't as strong either. And Jeremiah Masoli, he looked like he had that great, partnership with head coach Paul LaPolice right away. I thought it would take time. I was tweeting out, during the week last week. I don't know why people love Ottawa so much. It's going to take some time. Well, it didn't look like it needed any time last week. However, I will say, and I got to say this, after we did our show together last week, like 2 or 3 hours afterwards, 3 Winnipeg Blue Bomber defenders get announced out. So on defense. So that's still tough, but I was impressed by that game for Ottawa. And it definitely was one of those games where I'll say this. It finished 19-17. That game could have been 29-27. That's what you get from watching the games. And you talk about the X's and O's and looking at stat sheets. When I watched that game, out the gate, there was a wide open, hit you right in the hands play for a 65-yard pass, and the receiver just dropped it. That would have changed the whole dynamic of the game. So I thought that was an interesting one, though. And Saskatchewan Hamilton, I think it's now 7 straight times, Jeff, when those two teams have played, the home team comes out on top, which is just an interesting stat to look at, especially when you talk about travel early in the season. Obviously, how much does that matter compared to week 7? When you're actually been traveling around playing games, first game of the year. I cashed with the first half under as a best bet that day total wise, but the total was actually getting better in my favor. So I ended up doubling up first half full game. I got 48.5 under. That game stays under. And then last but not least, the team I hyped up last year to you, and now I hyped down big time, the Edmonton Elks. Just a horrible display there. Nathan Rourke and the Lions. Watch out. They had 36,000 fans packed into that building, which is great for the CFL. They put up 59 points on the Edmonton Elks. The defense looked embarrassing for them. And now we see Saskatchewan -7.5 favorites against them this week. But look forward to week 2. Some spots I definitely do like. And I'll tell you, I mentioned this last week, and I promise to not keep bringing it up, but I am so happy to see lines getting posted earlier and not just at noon the day of the game. It's really nice.
So tomorrow, tomorrow, first game of the weekend, Montreal at Toronto. I'm using DraftKings as we speak here. The Argonauts -3.5, the Alouettes +3.5, both -110, an under over of 49, which is the second highest total of the weekend, and a money line of the Argonauts -170 and the Alouettes +150.
Tomorrow, I'm looking at the under, and that number is continuing to go up. When I look at this matchup, first of all, actually, I got to get you to watch this clip, Jeff, on Twitter. I can send it to you, or you can see it on the Montreal Alouettes. The owner of the team, you can tell he's not very media trained, or he just doesn't give a damn. He said, "We are going to kill Toronto Thursday night." They said, "What do you think of your team? What's going to happen on Thursday?" "Oh, we're going to kill them. I'm sure of it." I'm sure the team is like, all right, no pressure now. But look, first of all, they really want a 10th team in the league. And that 10th team was supposed to be in my neck of the woods. And I don't even want to get into the politics of it, but they're hoping to get that. Why do I bring that up? Well, because a team had a bye in week 1. It just shouldn't happen. That was Toronto, and I think it's a good thing. They get more time to prepare, more time to get ready. They've got a new running back in Andrew Harris. They've got Speedy Banks, Brandon Banks at receiving position, and they got all kinds of new defenders. I think when you look at this roster, they are built for successful, low-scoring football games. It's going to be a field goal fest, and nobody sees it coming. Tomorrow's game, I talked about Montreal missing William Stanback. I talked about that injury, and I really want to say how important and tough that is for them. And the game of Montreal against Calgary, I'm happy I predicted the over. I'm happy I got it right. But when you look at that over, it's not like it was a clear cut, this one's going to go over. And when you're watching the second quarter type game, some things had to go right there. This one I see being more of a defensive battle. I see lots of punts here. And I think pass rush will be strong for both teams, and both quarterbacks will be running for their lives, especially early on. And again, this is Toronto's first game, real action. It might take some time for their offense to click as well, but I do trust their defense. So I think under is the play here. Last week I gave out the over in the opening game of the week. This time looking towards the under, and I think we're going to get a great number here at 49.
Friday night, Winnipeg at Ottawa. Current line, Winnipeg -3, -105. The Red Blacks at +3, -115. Vegas telling us that the next move might go down to 2.5. An over/under of 45 and a hook, -110 both ways. A money line, Winnipeg -160 and Ottawa +140.
I mean, I was talking about this with you before the show started. It's so weird. At one point, we saw a -9.5 last week. Winnipeg against Ottawa. Number drops down to like 6.5, 7, 7.5. And now we're seeing a home and home week 1 and 2. This game will now take place in Ottawa, the nation's capital. I might add that. And we now see, -2.5, 3, 3.5 here for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I mentioned a few minutes ago, I was impressed from what I saw from Ottawa. But how impressed was I? Pretty much Winnipeg played a really bad game, and they were only down 1 at half. And a lot of it was actually they should have been down like 3 or 4, but somehow it was miscommunication. And there was an article I read about that with the head coach saying, "Hey, it was a miscommunication on all of our parts. The fact they didn't use the clock right, they should have easily got 3 points on the board, Jeff, to end the half, but the clock ran out, which it just can't happen. But that's week 1 for you. I think that the numbers dropping down is an overreaction. And this is a good time to jump in on Winnipeg. And I was wrong about them last week, no doubt about it. Their secondary didn't look as strong. There were some injuries, but Zach Collaros, he still has to find his targets. He's got to get used to some new guys on his team. And of course, no Andrew Harris, Brady Oliveira and Augustine. Those 2 guys are the new guys at the running back position. They needed a game to get under their belt to realize we're the guys now. But the way this number is dropped, I'm going to sit here and give my respect to Ottawa, but I don't respect them that much just yet. So I think Winnipeg comes out on top, but I do like the under, Jeff. The over. I think we'll see games, or see points in this game, and I think that we're going to see more games with Winnipeg where there was a point last year where I think they allowed like a total of 15 points in 4 games in a row. Like all together, cumulatively. This year, we're going to see them have to put up points to win games, I think. And the fact they were able to squeak out a 19-7, like I said, that game could have easily been 27. That might sound kind of funny, but I'm telling you, if you watch that one, there's a couple, house calls that were missed, a couple interceptions that were dropped. I think things that will get cleaned up this week. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the lowest total on the board this week.
Actually, the next game just dipped to 44.5, so it's 1 point under. That will be Saturday at 6:30. Calgary at Hamilton. An opening number right now. Hamilton -1.5 +100. Calgary +1.5 -120. An under/over of 44 and a hook. Juiced over -115. You can get it under 44 and a hook at -105. A money line right now of Hamilton -115 and Calgary -105. So just from the eyes, it's one of these where Vegas is touting, or DraftKings at this point, Hamilton -1.5. They don't really like it. It's +100. They're kind of looking for people to jump on the Hamilton side, where my eyes would be saying to me right now, the sharper side would be Calgary.
Agreed. I think that Hamilton went to the Grey Cup back-to-back years against the exact same team and didn't come out on top. Then changes were made, quarterback, receivers, O-line. A lot of things happened with that team in the offseason, and it was a wild offseason. There was even a strike for the players. A lot of weird stuff happened, but Dane Evans now being the number 1 QB on this team, he is a mobile quarterback, Jeff, but not mobile enough that he's going to have to, be able to make these throws consistently on the run. We're going to see a tough time for him getting off the, making the reads that he wants to make with the offensive line he has right now. The Hamilton Tiger Cats couldn't afford to keep these guys, but one of the reasons why they were so successful for many years was because of the O-line they had. And they don't have that anymore. And anywhere you look or read, they'll tell you that it's a worry right now for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So I think Calgary is the play. I think they didn't really play their best game last week, and they were still able to put up 30. And, I think if we do see Bo Levi back in the starting role, he's going to want to prove himself. I hyped him up on your show. I hyped him up on a few different shows. He did not look great, and he got injured again. This is a guy that I said, he's healthy as he has been in a while. He's going to get off to a great start, and he proved me wrong. We'll see what happens, but he's got a guy behind him, and Jake Meyer just ready to take his spot and take it for good. So we'll see what can happen here, but I just think the cohesiveness, the chemistry from Calgary, I think that it's there for them to take that game on the road. I do have a play for clients on the total in this game. You can grab that with the promo code on the bottom of the screen.
Last game of the weekend, Saturday, 9:30 p.m. kickoff. What better way to end the Saturday night than a little CFL? We got the Rough Riders heading to the Elks. Opening number, Rough Riders -7.5. You can grab the hometown Elks +7.5. Your biggest total of the weekend, under over of 51, flat -110 either side. A money line right now, Rough Riders -300, Elks +235. We talk about overreactions. You talked about how bad the Elks were opening week. Now they come home to the home opener, getting a full touchdown and a hook and a high total, Andrew.
Really high. I wanted to read this quote here. I was just looking it up right now. This is from Dave Campbell. He covers the team. And this is what he said. And this is Chris Jones talking to the head coach of the Elks about last week. He said, "We didn't play any defense whatsoever. We couldn't tackle. We couldn't line up. We didn't man cover. We didn't pressure. We didn't peel on back. There were just so many errors." Does that sound like a coach that's happy to be there? I mean, this guy was going to be ready to walk out the door in week 3. One thing I learned last year is that in the CFL every year after week 1, you find a team where you ask yourself in week 2, is it this easy to keep fading this team? And with Ottawa last year, it was. If you faded them every game against the spread of the year, you had a pretty darn good year. As for right now, Saskatchewan is not a team they wanted to play in week 2. I mean, if BC put up 59 points against them, and now you've got Cody Fajardo, who's the head coach or the quarterback for Saskatchewan. And oh yeah, don't forget, when Chris Jones was a part of the Rough Riders organization, he said that Fajardo isn't a solid number 1. So you've got a quarterback saying to the media that he's motivated. He said, "I can't lie. I'm ready and pumped up to play against the Elks and prove him wrong." So you've got the former coach on a really bad team that has, quotes about the quarterback of the opposition, firing him up. And Saskatchewan has one of the best defenses in the league, one of the best field goal kickers in the league, which is so important in the CFL. And they're a great first half team. So that number is right. I haven't made a move on it just quite yet. Just I'm interested to see where it goes. I think I have to get on it soon. Honestly, my only debate is do I play first half or full game? It's not a question of if I play it. It's a question of do I play first half or full game? But this is a team that I'm going to say this. Saskatchewan probably isn't going to put up 50 points, but I don't think that Edmonton gets over 17, 18 points. I think that the defense is the biggest key. And if you look at Edmonton's points they scored last week, Jeff, is when the game didn't even matter anymore.
Well, I just looked up the first half for you, and DraftKings being a little sneaky. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a numbers guy here. 3.5 juiced -150. Okay. Yeah. They don't want to get off of 4. They're baiting you to take the 3.5, and it's a high tax. And the under over for the first half is 23 and a hook juiced over. So I want you to just put this one in your memory bank. Okay. This looks like it's going to be 13-10 Saskatchewan at halftime. Just remember that one. Okay. Remember that one.
13-10. All right. Let's blow this clip up. Let's make it viral. 13-10 exact score. See, that's the thing. And like, to be honest with you, I can't see that happening. So that's why I'm like, well, should I take it then? Like when you said that out loud, I was like, there's no way it's that close. There's no way they even scored 10 in the first half. But if I think that, then maybe I should make a move. But at that price, at minus 150, I'm better off taking the full game, I think. Because from a large stretch, a larger scale with 4 quarters, with that hard-nosed defense, and I think a really good point too, especially with CFL with being just 3 downs. People asked about Nick Arbuckle's performance, who's the quarterback for Edmonton, to Chris Jones. And he pretty much just said, like, well, what can I really say? We were down right off the gate. We're down 20, 30 points. You can't establish any run game. And run game is just so important in the CFL with there being just 3 downs. You got a guy that can punch you 3 or 4 yards ahead on first down. That sets you up for a great second down play. It's hard to judge. So my point of bringing this up is that in the second half, if they find themselves, let's just say Saskatchewan's down, let's say 6, or excuse me, they're up 6. Edmonton's going to have to throw the ball. They're going to start throwing the ball. They can't run the ball anymore. They got to realize they got to put the ball downfield. And when they struggle to do that, they're punting the ball. And then, Saskatchewan starts scoring. And then that's when they lose the ball game. You can't win games off only throwing, I don't think. You have to have a run game. And when you're down 20 points, does anybody even think you're running the ball anymore? Right? Like, I mean, why would you? Would you run the ball if your team was down 3 touchdowns? And that's what happened last week to them, is that their offensive line looked like a high school team because it was just so predictable that they were going to throw. So then the pass rush was just, it was amazing. So from an outside perspective, do you think that this could be our team where every week you and I are talking and saying, there we go, another cover against the Elks? Or do you think it takes 3 or 4 weeks and all of a sudden we're getting plus 10s on them and we're betting the other side?
Well, again, the proof's in the pudding. You give up 50 plus at opening week, and now you come home. They're giving you 7.5. They're gonna find that happy medium. What is the number? I mean, so if they were on the road right now, I don't know what they're using for home versus road splits here, but the Rough Riders would be probably 10.5, 11.5 at least. So you'll get a better gauge, after such a bad opening week. Does the Elks team show some pride? It's only the second week of the season. Do you get that bounce back? Is there an overreaction? As like you just said, are we just going to fade the Elks all week and auto bet it? They'll find a happy medium, and we'll know early. Obviously, like I said, just reading the book and the numbers that DraftKings is telling me, they don't want to go to 24 and they don't want to go to 4. They're telling you, come on, come bet the 3.5. You got to pay the tax at minus 150. Come bet the over 23.5. Pay the tax of 135. Where my eyes are telling me it's 13-10 first half.
And that would lead us towards the under, wouldn't you think? Full game. High total here. And you talk about the word overreaction. The BC Lions put up 59 points. The BC wasn't even good last year or the year prior, and they looked like the best team in the league in week 1. So the word overreaction, I think, couldn't be any more valid in this game because, let me ask you this. How much does that total have to do with what we saw from BC in week 1 put up on the Elks? Probably a lot, right? So Saskatchewan, the difference between Saskatchewan and BC is that they take longer to march the field. They know that Brett Lowther, their field goal kicker, can hit from anywhere. He's their best player pretty much. So they march the field, they mix in some running game, and that 13-10 could be completely possible for your first half prediction. Then they go on and win the game, 27-13. or I don't know, something like that. And, or, you know, some 27-10 even. I think I look at this game and, or 24 maybe. I mean, I don't think that this is one of those games where it's just an absolute shootout. I think that I can be impressed by a Saskatchewan Rough Rider performance, is what I'm trying to say, when they don't blow a team out. You know, still cover the point spread potentially, but I can be impressed with a team like Saskatchewan winning a game against a bottom feeder when, you know, it's low scoring fashion. To me, their goal isn't about how many points they put up, it's how many they allow.
And then the numbers here. So second half total will be 28 and a hook, and that gets you to your 51, 51 and a half, which is your full game there. So there'll be some interesting tidbits next Wednesday at 1:00 when we actually be following your timeline, and I'll be watching these games. Trust me, I'll be watching them and be taking notes.
And if you don't mind, I'll be tweeting at you a little bit. You're the only. I mean, this is my CFL show of the week. This is the only CFL show I'm doing, and I'm happy to break down every game. Other than that, I'm just doing one free play video for my Twitter, and so this is it. So anybody watching this is where I'm giving out all my CFL stuff. So I look forward to kind of tweeting at you and going back and forth. And by the end of it, we're going to be in week 7, and you're going to be telling me who you like too, and you're going to be giving out to your clients CFL picks.
The scroll has been working the whole time, as always, my friend. You can catch this gentleman on Twitter at McInnis Picks. You can catch him at Wager Talk. Sports Mayflower. I'm just waiting till the Twitter scroller was a little slow today. At Sports Mayflower, you can go over to YouTube, Mayflower Sports. Subscribe. It's free. Tell a friend. The promo code ECSI15, where you can get $15 off his CFL Best Bet and Package. But Andrew, as always, how we close here, the stage is yours. Tell everyone where they can go.
Well, I really appreciate it. As always, great to be here with you. I have a big bet up tonight for the Stanley Cup final, so you can grab that at Wager Talk. I just want to promote the interview I did yesterday. I talked about it, and I appreciate you letting me do that. Interviewed Jimmy. He's a friend of mine. He covers the Bruins, and we talked about the Bruce Cassidy firing, talked about the future of the team. And if you guys could check it out on YouTube, Mayflower Sports, I think it's great information, great hockey talk, and great to have someone close to the team to break down that firing. So if you're interested in NHL hockey news, I think it's a good podcast, and I enjoyed doing it.
And we can't wait. We got Stanley Cup tonight. We talked about a possible how it's going to end next Wednesday when we get back here. We'll see if the series is still going on. Most think it will be a 6 or 7 game series. I can't wait. I am so excited. 2 heavyweights going at it. Potential 3-time champ, which just hats off. I mean, not just they won the last 2, but to get there again. And I can't say it any better where I didn't have them getting out of the first round.
And Maroon going for his 4th straight cup. How crazy is that?
Insanity. And of course, our CFL, I am learning from you. And listen, I was a big CFL guy way back with Doug Flutie, Warren Moon, and all those times. Haven't been as big a fan, but started last year, and I'm all in this year. I love it. I love to look at numbers. Now, listen, my number breakdown of the Rough Riders and Elks, will probably be 31-0 at halftime. And but I'm just telling you how I see the board, and I only hope to get stronger as the season progresses. So we can't thank you enough, as always, Andrew.
Thank you, Jeff. Seriously, I look forward to it. It's happy to be here, and I love that we keep it light, but we're also trying to cash some winning tickets as well.
Exactly. So anyone wagering today, please do it responsibly. If you do have a problem, pick up the phone. There is an 800 number available. Ask for help. Why? Myself and Andrew care. We want to see you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, through 2022 and beyond. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Mr. Andrew McInnis at McInnis Picks at Wager Talk, we wish everyone a blessed day. Have some fun, cash a few tickets, and come check us out later on today and tomorrow.